Captain Jun-Ho Kim stood on the bridge of the Horizon Seeker, his eyes fixed on the large screen in front of him. The ship was small but fast, perfect for scouting missions in the outer sectors. Jun-Ho had been captain for 15 years. He was known for being careful and smart. His crew trusted him. "Captain, we have found something strange," said Officer Hana Park. Her fingers moved quickly across her control panel. "It's big. Very big." Jun-Ho walked to her station. "Show me." The main screen changed to show a massive dark shape against the stars. It was a ship, but unlike any they had seen before. It floated silently, showing no signs of power or life. "Big is it?" asked Jun-Ho. "Almost 2 kilometers long," replied Hana. "It's the size of a small city." Communications Officer Dae-jung turned in his chair. "Captain, I think it's human-made." The word made everyone on the bridge go quiet. Humans. We're part of the Galactic Union now. But not long ago they had been feared across the galaxy. Their war technology had been amazing and terrible. "Are you sure?" asked Jun-Ho. Dae-jung nodded. "The shape matches old human warship designs. See the long front section and the wide back? Classic human military style from 200 years ago." Jun-Ho studied the image. "Any power signs, life forms?" "Nothing," said Hana. "It's completely dead. Looks like it has been floating here for many years." "Let's take a closer look," ordered Jun-Ho. "Pilot Sunji, take us in slowly. Keep weapons ready just in case." The Horizon Seeker moved carefully toward the giant ship. As they got closer, they could see the damage on its dark hull. Deep cuts and burns marked its surface. Some sections were completely destroyed, showing the empty rooms inside. "Run a full scan," said Jun-Ho. "I want to know everything about this ship." Hana worked at her station, sending scanning beams across the dead vessel. "Captain, I'm finding something strange. The ship's outer shell is made of materials that match human technology from the last war. But some parts inside..." She looked up with surprise in her eyes. "Some systems look much more advanced." "Can you identify the ship?" asked Jun-Ho. Hana frowned at her screen. "There's a name and number on the side. It's partly damaged, but I can make it out. It says UNSC Invictus." Security Chief Sung-min, who had been quiet until now, suddenly stood up. "That's impossible." Everyone turned to look at him. "The Invictus was destroyed at the Battle of Proxima Centauri," Sung-min continued. "It was the largest ship humans ever built. Every school child knows the story." Dae-jung nodded. "Admiral Tai-wan Lee's last stand. The ship was surrounded by Union forces. Rather than surrender, he took on the entire fleet to give the human colonies time to escape. The Invictus was completely destroyed." "Well, it seems the history books are wrong," said Jun-Ho, staring at the massive ghost ship. "Because that's definitely the Invictus." "Captain," said Hana suddenly, "I'm detecting a very small power reading from deep inside the ship. It just started a moment ago." "Is it dangerous?" asked Jun-Ho. "I don't think so. It's very weak, almost like something is waking up after a long sleep." Jun-Ho made his decision. "Prepare a boarding team. I want to know what happened to this ship and why we were taught it was destroyed." 2 hours later, 5 crew members stood in the Horizon Seeker's launch bay. They wore space suits with the Galactic Union symbol on the shoulders. Each carried scanning equipment and emergency weapons. "Your mission is to explore only," Jun-Ho told them. "Find out what this ship is and why it's here. If you see any danger, return immediately." The team consisted of Security Chief Sung-min, Engineers Ji-won and Young-ho, Medical Officer Mi-sun, and Science Officer Hana. "Stay in contact at all times," continued Jun-Ho. "I want updates every 15 minutes." "Yes, Captain," said Sung-min. As the team leader, he would make decisions if they lost contact with the ship. The small shuttle left the Horizon Seeker and moved toward the giant ghost ship. Up close, the Invictus was even more impressive. Its hull was black and gray, with faded symbols of the old human military. "Look at the weapon ports," said Ji-won, pointing at massive gun barrels along the ship's side. "Those are planet killers. This ship could destroy entire worlds." The shuttle found an open docking bay and landed inside. The team checked their suits and equipment one last time before stepping onto the dead ship. Air pressure is 0, reported. Hana. No gravity, no heat. This place has been dead for a very long time. They turned on their suit lights and moved deeper into the ship. Their lights showed empty corridors and rooms. Everything was floating in the zero gravity. Papers, tools, personal items left behind by the crew. Where is everyone? Asked Mi-sun, looking at a floating coffee cup. A ship this size would have thousands of crew members. Maybe they abandoned ship, suggested Young-ho. Sung-min shook his head. Human military would never abandon their post. Something else happened here. They continued moving through the silent ship. Most doors were open, but some were closed tight. The team had to cut through a few to keep going toward the center of the ship. Captain, are you getting these readings? Asked Hana over the radio. The power source is getting stronger. It's coming from the central section. I see it, replied Jun-ho from the Horizon Seeker. Be careful. The team reached a large door with warning signs in an old human language. Hana translated, Danger, restricted area, authorized personnel only. The power reading is coming from beyond this door, she said. Sung-min examined the door control panel. It still has some backup power. I think I can open it. He worked on the panel while the others prepared their equipment. Suddenly the lights in the corridor flickered on. Dim emergency lighting bathed everything in a soft red glow. The ship is waking up, whispered Ji-won. A soft hum began to build around them as more systems came to life. The door in front of them slowly opened on its own. Captain, said Sung-min into his radio, something is happening. The ship is activating by itself. Should we turn back? Asked Mi-sun. Before anyone could answer, a hologram appeared in front of them. It showed an old human man in a military uniform with many medals. His face looked tired, but determined. This is Admiral Taewon Lee of the UNSC Invictus, said the hologram. If you are seeing this message, you have found what should have remained hidden forever. The team stared in shock at the face of a man who had supposedly died 200 years ago. The truth must now be told, continued the hologram. What you are about to discover will change everything you know about the past and may determine the future of all living things. The hologram faded, and the door opened completely, revealing a massive chamber beyond. In the center floated a strange device pulsing with blue energy. It was waking up, and as they would soon learn, it should have stayed asleep forever. The 5 members of the boarding team floated at the entrance of the massive chamber. The blue light from the strange device in the center cast long shadows behind them. No one spoke for several moments. Captain, are you seeing this? Sung-min finally asked into his radio. Yes, replied Jun-ho from the Horizon Seeker. His voice sounded tense. Our sensors can't identify what that device is. Be very careful. Hana moved forward first, her scanner held out in front of her. The energy readings are unlike anything in our database. It's putting out some kind of quantum field. The device looked like a large metal sphere with rings spinning slowly around it. Inside the sphere, a small point of blue-white light pulsed like a tiny star. Tubes and wires connected it to the floor and ceiling of the chamber. Look there, said Mi-sun, pointing to a control station near the wall. Maybe we can learn more about this device. Young-ho and Ji-won moved to examine the walls of the chamber, which were covered with warning signs and technical diagrams. These are quantum equations, said Ji-won, looking at the diagrams. Very advanced ones. I recognize some of the basic formulas, but most of this is beyond our current science. Young-ho nodded. The humans were working on quantum technology during the last war, but everyone thought they never got it working. This looks like they succeeded. At the control station, Mi-sun and Hana had managed to activate a computer terminal. Old human letters flashed across the screen. Can you read it? Asked Sung-min, joining them. Hana nodded. It's an old human language, but our translators can handle it. These are research logs. She pressed several buttons and the screen changed to show video recordings. The face of Admiral Lee appeared again, looking younger than in the hologram they had seen earlier. Project Breakthrough, Day 127, said the Admiral. The quantum drive is stable for short periods. We can create a fold in space that allows instant travel between 2 points. This could change the course of the war. Hana skipped ahead to a later entry. Project Breakthrough Day 189. Admiral Lee looked worried now. During the last test, we detected something unusual. For a brief moment, our sensors picked up signals coming through the quantum field. Signals that don't match any known pattern. Something may be watching us from the other side. The team looked at each other nervously. Skip ahead more, suggested Sungmin. Hana moved to one of the final entries. Admiral Lee now looked old and tired, just like in the hologram. Final entry, he said. The war is lost. The Union forces have surrounded us at Proxima Centauri. But I cannot let them take this ship. Not with what we've discovered about the quantum drive. He leaned closer to the camera, his voice dropping to a whisper. The drive doesn't just fold space, it tears the barrier between our reality and something else. Something that has been trying to get through since our first test. Something hungry. A chill ran through the boarding team as they watched. I've convinced the High Command to report the Invictus as destroyed in battle. In reality, we will take the ship to the edges of known space and hide it. A small crew of volunteers will stay aboard to make sure the drive remains inactive. We will power down all systems and wait to die naturally. This technology must never be used again. The screen went dark. That's the end of the logs, said Hana quietly. The chamber suddenly shook, and the blue light from the quantum device grew brighter. The spinning rings began to move faster. Captain, Sungmin called urgently. The device is becoming more active. What are your orders? Find a way to shut it down, replied Junho. If what Admiral Lee said is true, we can't let that thing fully activate. Ji-won and Young-ho rushed to examine the control panels around the quantum drive. These look like power controls, said Ji-won. Maybe we can cut the energy supply. Young-ho shook his head. Look at these warning labels. It says disconnecting power could cause a catastrophic reaction. We need to find the proper shutdown sequence. While they worked, Mi-sun discovered a small room off to the side of the main chamber. Inside were 6 sealed pods, each containing a human body. I found the volunteer crew, she called to the others. They're in some kind of stasis pods. According to these readings, they've been in suspended animation for over 200 years. Are they alive? Asked Sungmin. Mi-sun checked the pod monitors. 5 are dead. Their systems failed long ago, but this one, she pointed to the last pod. This one is still working. There's a living human inside. The quantum device pulsed brighter, and the ship shook again. Warning alarms began to sound throughout the chamber. Captain, Hana said into her radio, we should wake the surviving human. They might know how to shut down the drive. There was a pause before Junho replied. Do it, but be ready for anything. We don't know if they'll be friendly. Mi-sun studied the controls of the stasis pod. The wake-up process is automated. I just need to press this button. She pressed it, and the pod began to hiss as it opened slowly. Inside was an elderly human woman. Her white hair was cut short, and her face was lined with age. Her eyes fluttered open, showing confusion and then alarm. Who are you? She asked in a weak voice, speaking the common language of the Galactic Union. We are from the Union scout ship Horizon Seeker, explained Sungmin. We found this vessel drifting in space. The quantum drive is activating and we need to shut it down. The woman's eyes widened. No, if it's activating, it's already too late. Help me up, quickly. They helped her out of the pod. Despite her age, she moved with purpose once she was on her feet. My name is Dr. Sunhai, she said. I was the lead scientist under Admiral Lee. We've been monitoring the drive for all these years, making sure it stayed dormant. What happened to the others? Asked Mi-sun. One by one, their pods failed, said Sunhai sadly. I'm the last. I never thought I would wake again. The ship shook more violently, and the blue light from the quantum drive turned a deep purple. It's entering the critical phase, said Sunhai with alarm. The barriers between realities are thinning. How? Do we shut it down? Asked Sungmin urgently. Sunhai moved to a control panel and began entering commands. Admiral Lee created an emergency shutdown procedure, but it has a cost. The drive can only be neutralized by triggering a controlled overload. It will destroy this ship and everyone on it." The team looked at each other in shock. "Is there no other way?" asked Hana. Sunhai shook her head. "No. And we must act now. If the drive fully activates, it will tear a permanent hole between our reality and theirs. What comes through will not stop with this ship or your crew. Entire worlds will fall." As if to emphasize her point, the purple light from the drive flickered, and for a brief moment they all saw something move within it, a twisted shape that made no sense to their eyes. "Captain," said Sung Min into his radio, "did you hear all that?" "Yes," replied Junho grimly. "Get back to the shuttle immediately, all of you, including Dr. Sunhai." "But Captain," protested Sunhai, "someone needs to stay to trigger the overload manually. The automated systems failed long ago." There was a long pause before Junho spoke again. "Then we'll find another way. Return to the ship now. That's an order." As the boarding team prepared to leave, the ship shook more violently, and several power conduits exploded around them. The way back to their shuttle was now blocked by debris and electrical fires. "We need to find another way out," said Sung Min. "Dr. Sunhai, are there other escape pods or shuttles aboard?" The old scientist nodded. "Yes, in the emergency bay, one level up. But we must hurry. The quantum field is expanding." As they made their way out of the chamber, Hana looked back at the pulsing purple light. For just a moment, she thought she saw a face press against the fabric of reality. A face with too many eyes and a hungry, endless smile. The boarding team rushed through the dark corridors of the Invictus, following Dr. Sunhai. Emergency lights flashed red, and the ship shook every few minutes. The quantum drive's power was growing stronger. "This way," said Sunhai, pointing to a ladder that led upward. "The emergency bay is one level up." Sungmin went first, then helped the others climb up after him. Dr. Sunhai moved slowly because of her age, but her eyes were sharp and focused. "How long were you in that pod?" asked Misun as they reached the upper level. "Over 200 years, replied Sunhai. "We took turns staying awake to monitor the drive. 1 month awake, 10 years asleep. But as the others died, my sleep periods got longer." They reached a large door marked Emergency Bay in old human writing. Young Ho tried the control panel, but nothing happened. "Power's cut off to this section," he said. Ji-won examined the door. "We'll have to open it manually." She and Young Ho began working on the emergency release. While they worked, Hana turned to Dr. Sunhai. "What exactly is that quantum drive?" Admiral Lee's logs didn't explain everything. Sunhai's face grew sad. "It was supposed to be our salvation, a way to travel instantly across the galaxy. We were losing the war against the Union. Our colonies were falling one by one. But you discovered something else," said Sung Min. Sunhai nodded. "The drive doesn't just bend space, it punches holes through the fabric of reality itself. And we learned there are things on the other side. Things that have been trying to get into our universe for a very long time." "What kind of things?" asked Misun. Before Sunhai could answer, the ship shook violently. They all grabbed onto the walls to stay upright. "We don't have much time," said Sunhai urgently. "Your captain needs to know the truth. The Invictus wasn't just hidden to keep the quantum technology secret. It was hidden because something had already started coming through." The door to the emergency bay finally opened with a loud grinding noise. Inside was a large room with several small shuttles. "Captain," Sungmin called over the radio. "We've reached the emergency bay. There are shuttles here we can use to escape." "Good," replied Junho. "Launch as soon as you can. The energy readings from the quantum drive are getting stronger by the minute." The team rushed into the bay. Young Ho and Ji-won ran to the nearest shuttle to check if it still worked. "It still has power," called Ji-won. "Basic systems are functional. Get it ready to launch," ordered Sungmin. He turned to Sunhai. "Doctor, we need to know everything about that drive. Can it be shut down remotely?" Sunhai shook her head. "No. As I said, it needs a manual override. But there's something else. You should know." She looked at each of them with serious eyes. The Union has been searching for this ship for centuries. What? Why? Asked Hana. Because some of their leaders knew what we had discovered, said Sun-Hai. Not about the drive itself, but about what lies beyond our reality. Admiral Lee learned that certain high-ranking officials in the Union had been in contact with them. The team stared at her in shock. Are you saying some people in the Union wanted to let these creatures into our universe? Asked Mi-sun. Sun-Hai nodded grimly. These beings promised power to anyone who would help them cross over. They can't do it on their own. They need our technology to create the doorway. Hana's scanner suddenly beeped loudly. The quantum field is expanding. It's reaching out from the drive chamber. Over their radio, they heard Junho's urgent voice. The Horizon Seeker's sensors are picking up a massive Union ship approaching at high speed. It's the Celestial Dominion, Admiral Jinsu's flagship. Sung Min looked alarmed. Admiral Jinsu? He's one of the most aggressive commanders in the war. Union fleet. He must have detected our discovery, said Hana. Dr. Sun-Hee's face went pale. Jinsu? No, it can't be. She turned to the others. Jinsu is one of them, one of the officials who has been in contact with the creatures. His real name is Jinsu Park. He was a junior officer during the last war who disappeared during a battle. We thought he was dead. How do you know this? Asked Sung-min. Because Admiral Lee discovered his name in a coded transmission just before. We hid the Invictus, replied Sun-Hai. He was on a list of Union officials who had been changed. The ship shook again, more violently than before. In the distance, they heard a strange sound like metal being torn apart, but also like a scream. The creatures are starting to come through, said Sun-Hai with fear in her voice. And now Jinsu is coming. It's all happening just as Admiral Lee feared. The shuttle is ready, called Jiwon. We can launch now. All of you get on board, ordered Sung-min. He turned to Dr. Sun-Hai. Doctor, is there still a way to trigger the overload? Sun-Hai hesitated, then nodded. Yes, there's a command center near the main bridge. I can activate the sequence from there. But someone needs to stay behind to make sure it completes. I'll stay with you, said Sung-min firmly. No, said Sun-Hai. This is my ship, my responsibility. I've lived 200 years past my time. Let me finish what we started. Before anyone could argue, the ship was hit by something powerful. The whole bay shook and part of the ceiling collapsed. That was... Weapons fire, shouted Young-ho. The Union ship must be here. Everyone on the shuttle now, ordered Sung-min. He turned to Sun-Hai. Doctor, please come with us. We'll find another way. But Sun-Hai was already moving toward the exit. Tell your captain everything I've told you. The Union must know the truth about what some of their leaders have been doing. She pressed a small device into Hana's hand. This contains all of Admiral Lee's logs and our research. It proves everything. With surprising speed for her age, Sun-Hai ran through the door and sealed it behind her. We can't leave her, cried Mi-sun. We have no choice, said Sung-min grimly. Get on the shuttle. The team boarded the small craft as another explosion rocked the bay. Jiwon and Young-ho worked the controls, and the shuttle's engines came to life with a low hum. Captain, called Sung-min over the radio. We're launching in an emergency shuttle. Dr. Sun-Hai stayed behind to trigger the overload sequence. Understood, replied Junho. The Union flagship is firing on both the Invictus and us. Their weapons are much more powerful than ours. We're taking heavy damage. The bay doors slowly opened, revealing the blackness of space beyond. In the distance, they could see the Horizon Seeker moving to avoid weapons fire from an enormous ship, the Celestial Dominion. As their shuttle launched from the bay, they saw parts of the Invictus glowing with an eerie purple light. The quantum field was spreading throughout the ship. Look there, shouted Hana, pointing to a section of the hull that was changing. The metal seemed to be melting and reforming into strange organic shapes that made no sense. The creatures are reshaping the ship, said Mi-sun in horror. They're coming through. As they flew away from the doomed vessel, they received one final transmission from Dr. Sun-Hai. The overload sequence is activated. she said, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. Tell the Union what happened here. Tell them about the sacrifice we made, both then and now. The transmission cut off as another blast from the Union flagship hit the Invictus, but the massive warship wasn't destroyed. Instead, the purple glow grew brighter and more sections of the hull began to change. Captain, called Sung Min as their shuttle raced toward the Horizon Seeker. We need to get away from here now. The quantum drive is going to overload, but before it does, he didn't need to finish. They all could see what was happening. The Invictus, humanity's greatest warship, was becoming something else entirely. Something not of this world, and the Celestial Dominion was still firing at it, not realizing that every hit was only speeding up the transformation. The small shuttle raced through space toward the Horizon Seeker. Behind them, the massive shape of the Invictus glowed with purple light. Parts of it were no longer solid. They seemed to shift and move like something alive. Captain, we're approaching. Your position, called Sung Min over the radio. Request immediate docking. Approved, replied Junho. Docking bay is open and ready. As they flew closer, they could see that the Horizon Seeker had taken damage. Parts of its hull were blackened from weapons fire, and one of its engines was dark. The Union flagship is still firing on us, explained Junho. We've been trying to stay out of their main weapon range. In the distance, they could see the enormous shape of the Celestial Dominion. It was at least 20 times larger than the Horizon Seeker, with multiple weapon arrays all pointed at them and the Invictus. The shuttle docked inside the Horizon Seeker with a hard bump. The boarding team rushed out and made their way to the bridge. Captain, we need to leave immediately, said Sung Min as they entered. Dr. Sunhai has activated the overload sequence for the quantum drive. Junho nodded grimly. We're trying, but the Celestial Dominion is blocking our escape route. They've been sending messages demanding we surrender. Sir, we can't let them capture us, said Hana urgently. She held up the small device Sunhai had given her. Dr. Sunhai gave us this. It contains proof that Admiral Jinsu and other high-ranking Union officials have been working with creatures from another reality. Junho looked shocked. What? Sung Min quickly explained everything Sunhai had told them about the quantum drive and the beings on the other side. Junho listened with growing alarm. That's why we need to destroy the Invictus, finished Mi-sun. If those creatures fully come through, they could threaten all life in our galaxy. The overload should destroy both the ship and close the doorway they're using, added Young-ho, but we need to be far away when it happens. As they spoke, a message came through on the main communication screen. The face of Admiral Jin-Soo appeared. He looked like a normal Union officer, but there was something strange about his eyes. They seemed too dark and empty. Captain Kim, said Jin-Soo in a cold voice, you have interfered with a classified Union operation. Power down your engines, and prepare to be boarded. Admiral, replied Junho carefully, we discovered an abandoned human vessel and were investigating it according to standard procedures. Jin-Soo's face showed no emotion. That vessel is Union property. Your unauthorized boarding has activated dangerous systems. Surrender your ship now, or we will destroy you. Junho cut the communication. He wants the quantum drive technology, he said to his crew, and perhaps he wants to help those creatures come through. What can we do? Asked Daijun. Our weapons are no match for the Celestial Dominion and they're blocking our escape route. Hana had been examining her scanner. Captain, the quantum field from the Invictus is still growing. I think the overload sequence is working, but it's making the doorway unstable. More creatures are coming through. They all looked at the main screen, which showed the Invictus. The transformation was accelerating. Large sections of the ship were now completely changed. Strange structures grew from its hull. Things that looked like towers but moved like tentacles. The purple glow had become a swirling vortex of energy around the ship. The Celestial Dominion is still firing on it, said pilot Sunji. They don't understand what's happening. Junho thought quickly. If we can't escape past them, maybe we can go around. Sunji, set a course that takes us close to the Invictus and then away from both ships. Sir? Sunji looked uncertain. Going near the Invictus will be extremely dangerous. It's our only chance, said Junho firmly. The Union flagship won't follow us too close to the quantum field. They want to capture the technology, not be destroyed by it. Sunji nodded and began plotting the course. The Horizon Seeker turned and accelerated toward the transformed ghost ship. "Captain," called Daijung suddenly, "we're receiving a transmission from inside the Invictus. It's Dr. Sunhai." Sunhai's face appeared on a small screen. She looked tired, but determined. Behind her, they could see strange shapes moving in the shadows. "Captain Kim," she said urgently, "the overload is in progress, but the creatures are trying to stop it. They're taking control of the ship systems." "Doctor, we're doing everything we can to escape and warn the Union," said Junho. Sunhai shook her head. "There's no time for that. Jinsu and the others will block any message you try to send." She leaned closer to the camera. "There's another way. The quantum drive's energy can be redirected. Instead of just destroying this ship, I can target the Celestial Dominion." Everyone on the bridge went silent. "What do you mean?" asked Junho. "I can create a quantum pulse aimed directly at Jinsu's ship," explained Sunhai. "It will pull them into the collapse when the drive overloads. Both ships will be destroyed and the doorway will close forever. But you'll die," said Misun. Sunhai smiled sadly. "I should have died 2 centuries ago. This is my purpose, to finish what Admiral Lee started." Her image began to break up with static. "Now go. Get as far away as you can. This will create a massive shockwave." The transmission cut off. On the main screen, they saw the Invictus begin to move. Despite its transformed state, its engines had activated. It was turning toward the Celestial Dominion. "They're trying to stop it," said Young Ho, pointing to the Union flagship. It was firing all its weapons at the ghost ship now, but the strange material covering the Invictus seemed to absorb the blasts with little effect. "Full power to engines," ordered Junho. "Get us away from both ships now." The Horizon Seeker accelerated away as fast as possible. Behind them, the Invictus and the Celestial Dominion were now very close to each other. The purple energy field had begun to spread to the Union flagship, causing parts of it to twist and change. "They're trying to escape," said Hana, watching as the Celestial Dominion attempted to move away. But it was too late. The quantum field had locked onto it like a magnet. "Energy levels are reaching critical," reported Daejung. "The quantum drive is about to overload." "Brace for impact," shouted Junho. A blinding flash of light filled the bridge screens. The Horizon Seeker shook violently as the shockwave hit them. Everyone held on to whatever they could to stay upright. When they could see again, both the Invictus and the Celestial Dominion were gone. In their place was only empty space, with a faint shimmer that quickly faded away. "All sensors report," ordered Junho. "Is there any sign of the quantum field?" "No, Captain," replied Hana after checking her scanner. "The field has collapsed completely. The doorway is closed. And the ships? Both destroyed. No debris, no survivors. They were erased from existence." A heavy silence fell over the bridge. The largest human warship ever built and the most powerful Union vessel, both gone in an instant. "Captain," said Sungmin quietly, "what do we tell Union Command? They'll want to know what happened to the Celestial Dominion." Junho looked at the small device Hana was still holding, the one containing all of Admiral Lee's logs and research. "We tell them the truth," he said firmly. "About the Invictus, about the quantum drive, and about the officials who were working with creatures from another reality." "They might not believe us," said Daejung, "and those who were working with the creatures might try to silence us." Junho nodded. "That's why we won't just tell Union Command, we'll tell everyone. We'll transmit the logs to every Union world simultaneously." He stood up straighter, looking at each member of his crew. "Today we witnessed the greatest sacrifice in history. Twice. First, when Admiral Lee and his crew chose to hide the Invictus rather than use its power to win the war. And then when Dr. Sunhai gave her life to stop the creatures from coming through." "Both humans," said Misun softly. "Yes," agreed Junho. "The history books taught us that the Invictus was destroyed by aliens in a great battle. The truth is more complex. The greatest human warship was never destroyed by aliens. Until today, when aliens destroyed it to protect everyone. He turned to Daijung. Prepare a broadcast to all Union frequencies. The people deserve to know what really happened here. As the Horizon Seeker turned and set course for the nearest Union world, Junho looked one last time at the empty space where the two mighty ships had been. Sometimes the greatest victory was choosing not to use power when you had it. Admiral Lee had understood that 200 years ago, and now, thanks to the sacrifice of the humans and his own crew, that lesson would not be forgotten again. The end.